Well, good morning and welcome to church, everyone.
Welcome,
Happy
Mary.
Sunday. It's the best day of the week. Jacob, thanks for being back.
You're welcome.
This is awesome. Thanks so much for coming back.
Insight on the transitions here. Mary was too good on the first couple services, so she's been a staple every service. And then we've been swapping out.
But then
co-host.
last time you did good, so now you're officially hired.
What I'm saying is we have this internal debate every week to see who's going to be Mary's co-host here, and I've lost a couple weeks in a row. So,
Jacob, did you change your hair?
I didn't.
Oh, looks great.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you so much for being here. Whether you're here in Powell, Butte, you're watching in Wickenburg, or you're watching online, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of Shiloh Ranch. If it's your first time in a service or watching online, welcome. Thank you for being here. Thanks for commenting where you're watching from. Thanks for sharing the service. We say it every week, but that's a huge part of getting the word out and helping to spread what we're doing here. So we had amazing feedback on last week's service. Hopefully you were able to see that. Thank you for sharing that. A lot of people shared during the service. A lot of people I noticed went back and shared later. So just so awesome. And we actually reached over 15,000 people with that service alone. So of course, if just one person's life was changed with that message, we're happy. So
I can't even count to 15,000.
Should we try? 1, 2, 3, 4.
You're
you have
going
to go
too fast.
faster.
No, you're going too
You're
fast.
going too slow. Good Lord. So Jacob, what's up?
Nothing much.
Nothing. We're
Yeah.
going into the second.
We're going into the
episode.
second episode of this sermon series podcast thing. We still don't have a name for it. We've been calling it Sermon 2.0.
Yeah.
But again, if anybody has a better name, just comment it or tell Mary.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going into the second episode
Yeah.
with Steve Stone, but we'll talk about that more later.
Yeah. I haven't heard it yet, so I'm super excited. So I'll be hearing it for the first time with everyone here. Super excited about that. And as we're starting to get going in today's service, hit the share button. We had lots of shares last week, and I feel like today's podcast or sermon, whatever it is going to be just as powerful.
Yeah,
So,
it's great.
yeah.
Right after this, we're going into worship.
Yeah.
And Mary, you are involved in worship. I've noticed.
Yeah, it depends on the day.
Yeah, I've noticed you've been in a couple of the videos.
Okay.
What's the vibe like behind the scenes, and specifically, what is today's set
Yeah.
like?
Yeah, today is a good set, kind of a throwback to, I think it was honestly kind of in quarantine, so it's been a few months. But the first half of worship we'll be going into just in a few minutes is 2 songs all about the God of miracles. And so it's kind of cool how we paired those 2 songs together. The second song specifically sings a lot of the words, "I believe in you." And it's, in my mind, sometimes there's been times where it's been hard to believe those lines, whether it's like an anxiety attack or a heartbreak or just a moment of fear. Sometimes it's hard to say those words and actually believe in it and mean it. So that's why I love that song so much. And so as we are going through this worship set, think back to a time that maybe you had difficulty believing in those words and believing that God would bring you through heartbreak or fear or anxiety or whatever the situation was, and just kind of let that soak in. I really enjoy this set. So
Yeah, I've tried out for the worship team a couple times. Haven't gotten an email back. I'm sure you're working
that's
on
weird. It must be in my spam folder.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll figure it out eventually.
Jacob, you're behind the scenes during worship sets. What was your vibe specifically for this set, if you can remember?
It was always good.
Good.
Every time.
Every time. Except for
Jordan,
the times that I messed up.
Yeah. It was beautiful.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cool. So we're excited. Guys, just one last reminder, hit the share button. If you're in service or in person in a service in Powell, Butte, or Wickenburg, take out your phone, get on Facebook, share so that people online on your Facebook can see what you're up to this morning. The other thing I was going to say is here in Powell, Butte and in Wickenburg, we're able to see faces, interact with each other. So I just think it would be cool for people from the Wickenburg and the Powell, Butte campus to get into the comments section of the live stream and show your face. face. Hopefully you have just the most beautiful profile picture we've ever seen. Get in there, comment and say specifically like, hey, I'm watching from the Powell Butte campus, hi online campus, or I'm watching from the Wickenburg campus. So interaction. That's great. Interact. Do you have anything else?
Nope.
A joke. Just kidding.
Nope.
Okay, Jacob and I will be back right before the sermon to talk more about that. We're super excited. We're going straight into worship after we get done here. So when the music begins, stand, worship with us wherever you are, and thank you for being here.
Let faith arise in spite of what I see, Lord, I believe. But help my unbelief, I choose to trust you. No matter what I feel, let faith arise. Let faith arise. For my champion's not dead, he is alive. Oh, and he already knows my every need. Surely he will come and rescue me. God of miracles, come. We need your supernatural love to break through. Nothing's impossible, 'cause you're the God of miracles. Let faith arise. See the kingdom come, I lift my eyes. Oh, for the battle has been won and my God is faithful. Oh, and every single word he said is true. Oh, it's true. God of miracles, come. We need your supernatural love to break through. Nothing's impossible, 'cause you're the God of miracles. Yes, you are. This world is shaking, but you will not be shaken. My heart is breaking, but I'm not broken yet. Your love is fearless. Help me to be courageous too. Oh, there's nothing that's impossible for the God of miracles, come. We need your supernatural love to break through. Nothing's impossible, 'cause you're the God of miracles. God of miracles, come. We need your supernatural love to break through. Nothing's impossible, 'cause you're the God of miracles. Moving here in front of me. believe in you. I believe in you. You're the God of miracles. I believe in you. I believe in you. You're the God of miracles. The one who does impossible is reaching out to make me whole, reaching out to make me whole. The one who put death in its place, his life is flowing through my veins. His life is flowing through my veins. I believe in you. I believe in you. You're the God of miracles. I believe in you. I believe in you. You're the God of miracles. The God who was and is to come. The power of the risen one. And the God who brings the dead to life. You're the God of miracles. The God of miracles. The God who was and is to come. The power of the risen one. The God who brings the dead to life. You're the God of miracles. The God of miracles. I believe in you. I believe in you. You're the God of miracles. I believe in you. I believe in you. You're the God of miracles. I believe in you. Miracles come true. My God, I believe in you. I believe in you. You're the God of miracles. Yeah, God, we just thank you for this time of worship. God, we know that you can do miracles. You can move mountains. So God, as we declare that we believe in you, would you show us the miracles that you can do? God, give us faith and peace that casts out all fear. God, we know that you are worthy of all of our praise. And we love you. Amen.
You want to hear something stupid? When we started the 1017 project, we didn't even know if the food banks needed hamburger. Turns out they do. This past Sunday at the Powell Butte campus, we sent people home with packages of hamburger to deliver. What we have found is that hamburger is such a staple in the communities of people that are needing food. Here's what I was thinking. We can do that in Powell Butte with cattle that we've raised with the 1017 project, but if you're watching online, there is nothing stopping you from going to the grocery store, buying hamburger, and dropping it off at the food bank. You could start your own little 1017 thing right there at your house. Giving corporately is such a big part of our culture, but giving within the community, loving people that you see, looking for an opportunity to contribute to the people who need it is not something that's limited just to the online, sending it to a church, sending it to a corporate setting. Obviously, we encourage that too, but we would encourage you this week that if you're watching online, that you can be a blessing to the people where you are in the same way that you're going, is that something that's needed? We've been there. We know what it's like to say, is there something we can do? And have it go well. So not just talk about giving to the church, we also want to encourage you to give to each other and look for ways to make an impact where you are.
Hey, Mary.
Hey,
That
welcome
was a
back.
fantastic set.
I heard you singing along.
I was not.
Yeah, you were.
We are going into the sermon podcast, Sermon 2.0, whatever you want to call it.
Episode 2
Episode
of 4.
2 with Steve Stone. And Steve is an incredible example in how Jesus can work through people outside the church walls.
Nice, okay.
He has a great story, and he started a wonderful foundation.
Cool.
And it was cool being in the room because you can really feel the Holy Spirit. And especially he talks about, his story and how he can, he hears God, and I love it because it's so authentic.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He's a wonderful guy.
Yeah. So make sure and stick around to the end of the service when we come back on after worship. That's when we're going to be sharing all of the information about Steve's foundation and just kind of following up what he talks about in the sermon. We'll also be posting that in the comments of the live stream. So just make sure and stick around because that's a huge part of sharing these stories is how these people are helping the world. So we'll be sharing all of that information. Just make sure and stick around for that. Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right. After the sermon, we'll go back into worship. So again, when the worship begins, stand and worship along with us. But for now, we'll go into the sermon.
Early on, I felt like I always had this conversation with God. Like, God, I never felt called to be a typical pastor, and it just felt like such a frustration. I wanted to do a good job. I think that's important to state. It wasn't that I didn't want to do it because I didn't care about people. It was that I wanted to do a good job, and I felt like that I wasn't going to fit that model. But what you're going to see for the next 4 weeks, to me, is a moment of vision. It's almost like stepping into the promised land. Jacob flew down to be able to capture it. We had the people in the room that I've been trying to get to come to Oregon, but they're busy and they've got lives and stuff that they're doing. We met some people that are just, the stories are unbelievable. And like I said, I don't even know how to tell you to prepare for where we're going. I'm excited for you guys to get to hear it. I'll tell you a little bit about each individual story, but this is going to be the thing that you're going to hear for 4 weeks in a row as we go through what I don't even know what we're calling it yet. Maybe like the evolution of a sermon. Maybe it's maybe kind of a hybrid between a podcast and a sermon. I'm actually happy that it doesn't have a name because it means it's something that we haven't seen over and over and over again. I will say this, we sat in the room yesterday and there was just this awe and sort of this silence where everybody's sort of looking at each other like, man, you feel it. You feel what God is doing in the room with these people and with these people that love Jesus. And so I'm so excited that we now have a method or a means by which we can share those private, intimate moments, these Jesus moments that go into the depth of what his word says and what it looks like played out in people's lives. And I'm so grateful that we were able to capture that in a way that now can be put in front of people that I know this. I know there's going to be people every single week that find themselves in the stories that you're going to hear over the next 4 weeks. I can't tell you how much I love Steve Stone. He's just a brother. He's a guy that I can call when I have an idea but that I haven't quite put into a concept where I can understand it. Steve loves Jesus. He is so far out of the box. Wasn't raised in church, and so he didn't know all the rules. And he's one of those guys that's kind of like, why does everybody do it that way? I love that guy. I could call that guy at 2 o'clock in the morning and tell him I'm broke down on the side of the road 5 hours away, and he'd be on the road in 5 minutes. And I don't think you get very many friends like that, but the thing about the way he loves Jesus is it sucks people in. He causes other people to go, wait a minute, if that's who Jesus is, and if that's what it looks like, it draws people in. I've been talking to him for years about what it'd be like to get him to Oregon. He's starting a foundation. I'm not gonna get ahead of myself. I'm so excited for you guys to get to meet him.
It's like close. I'm gonna end up going whack. Because I talk with my
Try to make it formal and don't church it up.
Do you know me at all? Hello, brother Steve. Welcome to my podcast.
Welcome to,
Hi, welcome to my YouTube page.
There's got to be more.
I am Excited. I feel like this right here has been, I don't even know how many years. I mean, we talked about it for years trying to get you to Oregon.
Yep.
And we couldn't do that, so we literally moved an entire studio down here so that we could get you.
Give me a break.
Steve Stone, so I don't even know how to set up where we're going to go. We're in a series that is done a little bit differently. I mean, usually if this was a sermon series, I go, I know how to start a sermon. I've preached a lot of sermons. I don't know what the procedure is for a sermon that's preached as a conversation between two people. But I feel like you're the guy if there's anybody that's just going to naturally sort of flow right through this is you.
All right.
I'm going to read where we're at, and then we're going to get into it.
Is this when you preach the sermon to me now, or what?
Bless you. This is the only sermon I think that we've ever done as a podcast where there's an audience. All right, here's where it is. Matthew chapter 13, verse 1. It says, that same day Jesus went out of the house and sat by the lake. This is going to be the exact same parable we use for all these that we're going to do. Such large crowds gathered around him that he got in a boat and sat in it while all the people stood on the shore. Then he told them many things in parables, saying, a farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path. The birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly, but because the soil was shallow. When the sun came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no root. Other seeds fell among thorns, which grew up and choked out the plants. Still other seed fell on the good soil, where it produced a crop 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. Whoever has ears to hear, let him hear. Here's why that's been so meaningful to me, is that I feel like God is doing a new thing in his people. Definitely. And every time I talk to you, that concept that says depth is important to you. One of the things that you have, I think, a gift of doing is calling out shallow spiritual rituals. Rituals.
Like rules.
What? Yeah.
Kind of,
well, I wouldn't even say rules as much as I would say traditions or, sacred performances. You, amongst all of my friends, are the first one to go, why do we do that? Why is that important? Yeah. Because there's a shallowness to that. When I look at that, there's a shallowness to that you feel triggered by. You're kind of you will almost swerve the other direction to make sure to avoid that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me, there's 1,000 on-ramps. I'm trying to decide which one to start with.
And I can tell you when he says, he that has an ear, let him hear, because I believe there's so many layers of revelation in just that story. I mean, there's so much. And I know you're talking about fertility. Well, isn't fertility sacrifice for someone else's gain?
Yeah.
Isn't that what that is? I mean, if a woman's pregnant, it's not for her gain.
Right.
She's fertile. She's producing fruit.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I feel like fertility is a sacrifice for someone else's gain.
And that's what the soil says that it produced.
Correct.
Seeds are cheap, the soil is expensive. And if it's 160 or 30 times fold what was invested into it, that came from soil into the world.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that you are so staunch on is a Jesus culture. I don't get how sacred the traditions are, how sacred this is, or how sacred it's literally who's Jesus, who was he, how do I make myself look more like that?
Yeah, for sure. And Jesus is such perfect theology. So people study theology, and it's about the teachings and this doctrine, but really, man, the perfect theology is Jesus.
Yeah.
Like if Jesus would do whatever, then that's what you should do.
Yeah.
So you should be Jesus. And I feel like the soil, like you're talking about preparing the soil and being fertile, is that not, that's our responsibility. Our responsibility is not the harvest.
Right.
Keep reading that.
Right.
And you'll see that the responsibility of the harvest is not ours. The responsibility of the seed is not ours.
Right.
But our responsibility is preparing that soil.
A safe
the
place.
soul is our culture.
Yeah.
Our personal culture. Okay?
Yeah.
So you can say the church culture, yes, as the pastor, it's your job to define the culture in your house, in your church, in your house. That's your job, is to define that culture. And culture is what's important to us. That's the definition of culture, is what is important to me and what's not important to me. Okay?
Right.
It's our job as believers, or even as men in our house, that's also our job, is to create the culture in our home.
Yeah.
What's important to us and what's not. That's the preparation of the soil of fertility, is creating the culture.
We got to go back, because that is who you are. That, in a nutshell, if we stopped right there, I think people have a snapshot that played out every day is who I know you to be. When we met, you're a horseshoer.
Mm-hmm.
And God had, there's such a peace in my life knowing your story, because, and I want people to hear it, you didn't figure it out. God literally out of nowhere sort of pushed you this way and pushed you that way, and your life becomes this wild ride, not because you figured it out, but because your heart was, God, take me where you want me to go.
Yeah.
How do you transition from horseshoer to what was next? I mean,
well, man, like there's a huge process there, but yeah, shoeing horses. I'll just kind of tell you my story. I went to Sul-Ross in Alpine, Texas, to learn to shoe horses. All right, so I spent 20 years shoeing horses, but and
a good horse.
And I got on a path. I'll tell you, I got on a path of truly pursuing God, pursuing Jesus. Let me tell you something, man. God blesses pursuit. He blesses pursuit.
Yeah.
And you don't have to get it all right.
Right.
And I say that coming from someone that I had great parents, but I wasn't like, church wasn't a deal for us. It just for whatever reason wasn't. I wasn't raised in church. I wasn't raised by bad parents. I just wasn't raised in church. So I can remember when I got saved at a rodeo school when I was an adult.
But that, we know now that you are so, what some would say is disrespectful, which I love, to the old traditions, but you weren't raised in them.
No,
you asked, like, why do we do that? Why is that important?
That's right.
So you're almost at an advantage where you didn't grow up knowing the agreed upon rules.
I didn't know the rule. I didn't know anything about the Bible. I didn't know anything. Yeah. So all I knew was, so this Jesus loves me this much. Who could deny that? I mean, who
wouldn't say yes to that?
I was just so dumbfounded that anyone would deny that. But like, I can remember when I got saved and I started just going, God, I want to know you more, and I didn't even know what that really meant. I can remember, thinking the Bible. I didn't know the Old Testament from the New. I didn't know. I probably called Psalms Palms and Job Job.
My wife, when we got
listen,
married,
man, I thought like Concordance was the last book in the Bible. Like, what is that? Like, I knew nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So it just had to be about a relationship with the one that wrote it.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Which, by the way, is an invitation. That might get us off on another rabbit trail.
Okay, so I want to, because I know I know what you're doing today, and I know that we've got a little bit of a gap between shoeing horses, finding Jesus, loving Jesus, to what you're doing today. So that transitions. I know that you're on your place, and God spoke to you.
Yeah, that's right. So I was like, I was playing music, because I'm a musician and I was playing the church also while I was shooting horses. I was in youth ministry, did a lot of things over the years. We come to a point where, and I just knew that there was just something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know how when you feel like
a stirring,
man, like my assignment's over here or whatever. I just feel like God had something else, and I think a lot of people come to that point.
Yeah.
Multiple times
in the change,
you just sense a change. Like the winds of change are blowing. I just feel something different. Well, one day, I was my shoeing clients had canceled that day. I can't remember if it was for weather or whatever it was. And I was on my ranch and I was walking around and I just said, man, I'm gonna spend a day praying, because I just know God has something for me. So I'm just gonna take off walking. And I was just walking down. I have a creek that runs through my place, and I was just praying. I was like, God, if there's I just know there's something else here. I just know that there's another calling, another assignment, and whatever that is, I know you don't want to keep it from me.
Yeah.
Like, why would God want to keep his purpose from us?
Isn't that kind of monumental, though? Like the logic of like, I know you wouldn't keep it from me. Maybe you got me on a process. Maybe you brought me to this place. But at the end of the day, to believe that.
And I understand that he would only show it to us in parts, because I got to tell you, if God showed us what we would end up doing, they would probably, because I think what I'm doing now, if you would have told me this 10 years ago, to freak me out.
There's no capacity to hold it.
That's right.
You're not big enough spiritually.
But he doesn't want to keep it from us.
Right.
So he gave me this next step. So literally I'm praying, and one of the times, and I hear God's voice all the time, so I don't want to sound like a freak, but listen, his sheep hear his voice.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you hear an audible voice, but listen, you've got to hear the voice of God.
Yeah.
And so God spoke to me as clear as he's ever spoken to me. At that time, I was praying, and God said, you're going to get a phone call today, and that's as clear as I'm going to make it. And I remember thinking, wow, it's pretty clear.
That seems pretty clear.
It's pretty clear. So I went back to the house that day, and it was like early morning. Well, that morning I was reading in Mark where Jesus cast out the demons of this demon-possessed guy, and they went to the pigs, and then Jesus got in the boat and was leaving. He was like, I'm going, and the guy said, I want to go with you. Remember that? He's like,
which seems at a glance, how does it get any better? I want to go with Jesus.
Well, I want to go with you.
That must be the right move. It must be right. I'm going to follow you.
Right.
That must be the right move.
But what I didn't tell you was about a month before this, there was a cowboy pastor that had a cowboy church that needed a youth pastor, and he approached me and wanted a resume, wanted all that, and now doesn't that seem like a perfect fit though? I was like, wow,
well,
I've been in youth ministry.
It is a change,
and I've been in. Yeah, man, this might be the deal. So at that morning, I'm reading that scripture. I'm like, I'm not sure how this applies to me, but I just know there's something to it. Fast forward, God tells me someone's going to call you. And so I'm up in my house, and I'm like, I can't even remember what I was doing, like welding or something around the shop. And I was like, God, I kept looking at my phone. You know how that is.
Yeah. Did I hear you?
Is this thing on? What's the deal here? But then I was like, a couple times, I almost called that youth or that pastor.
Right.
But I was like, no.
Hold on, real quick. I know this. In my life, every big opportunity that turns out to have been right before the God moment, there's a substitute moment. Always. And every time I've ever messed up, I feel like that I've accepted the substitute moment, knowing
Don't you do it.
well that it wasn't right, but it made sense.
Yep.
And anytime I've said, man, I've learned to trust that I hear God's voice, not audibly, but like I know when something feels icky.
Yeah, man.
Not bad, just not right.
Just off. Yep.
And that so many times, whatever you pass up that you know doesn't feel right, it's like exactly what you're saying.
Yeah,
in my life, there's been that like that just doesn't. Or worse,
there was a couple times I almost called though. Man,
Yeah.
I was like, I think I'm gonna call him and just make sure he got my resume. What do you think? And then I was like, no,
you
man,
sending
no.
a resume to me makes
Do you
me
know
laugh.
what? Whenever he goes, send me a resume. I'm like, oh yeah. And then I thought, how do you do that?
My name is Steve. I am a horseshoer.
But I'd already been to a few semesters of Bible college by then, and I had some knowledge. But still, I was just like thrown off by their whole resume deal.
Yeah.
But anyway,
for sure. Who pastors a cowboy church and says the word resume?
I know, right? I'm like, is that what it takes? Resume?
Don't do that here.
Yeah. But anyway, I was like, man, should I call him and see? And then I'm like, no. I specifically heard God's voice, so I've got to wait that out. And I bet it was 2 or 3 hours. It seemed like 20.
Yeah.
My phone rings, and it's a number I don't know. So I'm like, I can already feel it. Like this is whatever that is, this is it. So I answered the phone, and it was a gal, and she said, Steve? And I said, yep. And she said, hey, you got a minute? I said, I sure do. Because I knew then, right? Well, long story short, that was the wife of Casey Donahue, and she was calling me to see if I would be willing to go on the road with them and play bass for them.
So hold on.
So I was like,
God said, I'm going to tell you where I want you to go. And you almost chose church. Oh. And when God moves,
and I'm going there. I'll show you how this works. So I'm like, I didn't have to ask my wife. I didn't have to ask God because I knew He'd already told me I was going to need a call, and that's as clear. So I said, yeah, man, I'll go on the road with you guys and play bass. And I ended up talking to her for another hour or so on the phone. When I got off the phone, I'm just like, wow.
Now, half the people are going to know who Casey Donahue is.
Yeah, and the
other
other
half
don't.
may
That's
not.
okay. It's just,
but the ones that
just
do,
a part of my journey. It's not that.
But it's important for the people that are, oh, Casey Donahue, this must be a great opportunity. It wasn't at the time.
Not really.
At the time, he wasn't what he is now. At the time,
That's
this
right.
was like basically your buddy
Yeah,
calling
man,
and like, hey,
for
you want to
sure.
come do like a garage band?
That's right. So I go back in after this phone call, and I go, God. And so I look in the same scripture I was reading that morning. Like, how does this apply to me? And the Lord told me, just like this guy that I healed, and I set him on a path, and he wanted to get in this boat with me. You wanted to call that guy in that church.
Yeah.
But I got something else for you. And one thing God showed me was like, through that was, if you were to stand up in front of a church and say, I'm going to some Muslim country and I'm just gonna spread the gospel and I'm gonna, and man, they would embrace you. They would give you
They'd
money.
probably raise $5 for you right there on the spot.
Just
$20
$20
like
a month.
you.
Yeah. Whatever it is.
$20 a month.
$20 a month.
As long as you send your newsletter.
As long as you send your newsletter. But what God showed me was
In fact,
like
I need
the
to
enemy's
apologize
got
for
a
that.
camp. Yeah, the enemy's got a camp set up here,
Yeah.
but the church doesn't embrace anyone going into it.
It's the bars.
Yeah. Sometimes, now after I was in that assignment, I realized that sometimes it's not the bars that was a part of my assignment. I'm on a tour bus with 11 other dudes that wouldn't darken the doors of a church,
Right. Including the guy driving the bus, as it were.
as it were.
Yeah.
And so I got to lead so many, man, the stories are like from bus drivers to guitar players, because the turnover in that world is great.
Well, and when Jesus sends legions, who was not now legions, back into the community, there's a familiarity that you have now on this side of it going, I kind of know what his life probably looked like.
Yeah.
He was not going with Jesus. And the disciples, that was their call, was to follow Jesus.
And do you remember what the people did after he was healed?
They asked him to,
They go, you got to get out of here,
Leave.
man. This is weird.
yeah, it's too much. Yeah.
Another layer of revelation. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So whenever I knew God was calling me to do that, or He had told me, this is your next assignment, I knew you don't go to the churches and tell people that. Let me tell you something. When God truly has an assignment for you, it's special, man.
Right.
That's between you and God.
Right. Right.
You don't have to tell people.
Well,
that.
ask Joseph how telling people what your dreams were went.
Didn't work out. Well, it ended up working. But yeah, you're right. No, that's exactly right. You don't have to have people's approval for God's call.
When
in your
it's
life.
that clear,
You don't
it's
have to have
undeniable,
that.
yeah.
Just like the next assignment, now as of this past January.
So hold on. We're skipping too much time. I want to go back because in the period of time that you were there, it went from that being, I said a garage band, but it's basically like playing the corner at Northside, to there's pictures of you like in New York in front of just packed out stuff. Like it didn't just kind of go good. It went really, really well.
It went really well, and it was
in the
such a
pictures.
cool
if people
time,
look
man.
it up, Casey Donahue, he was the bass player that wore the cinch as the guitar strap.
Yeah, but it was such a good time, and it was a great time, man. I embraced the journey. It was, in fact, I would even tell Casey over the years, he and I both would sit and talk, and I'd say, if this ends tomorrow, this has been a pretty good run.
Yeah.
This has been a good time. But when I look on a deeper level of that and go, you know what though, it's not only giving me some credibility for whatever reason in the world, for people that maybe recognize me or look familiar, but I can think back to so many one-on-one conversations that were absolutely life-changing.
Yeah.
With people.
Do you
on
think,
that bus or at shows, it was just transform. Just crazy.
was it already there, or do you think that God really refined your heart for people that were in abuse or in, I'm going to say slavery, but everybody who sins is a slave to sin.
I
Do
don't
you
know,
think
man.
that really brought that to the surface, or do you think that your heart for that, because the next season, what we're going to get to, do you think that that's always been there, is like the defense of the innocent or the defense of...
No, I think that's always been there for me, really. I really do, man. Like, I just feel like that's been there. But I'll say this, back on the church thing, after playing in so many places, and I played in some really cool places. I've been to 3 inaugurations. I've gotten to play Red Rocks, and Colorado, which is the coolest place ever.
gosh.
3 times.
Yeah.
Place is cool.
Wow.
But I've gotten to play almost in every state, all over I can tell you, when you're standing up there and playing in bars and you're playing in clubs and venues, how come these people look happier than they do in church?
I don't think we're ready for that. I don't think.
I'm just saying. I'm not.
Freedom. There's a freedom.
Yeah.
Gosh, Jody said something yesterday about a python spirit, and I'm like, what the heck is that? And it's the restrictive thing that people who think they're following Jesus, back to your guy, think they're following Jesus into not doing anything till they don't talk and they don't smile and they don't laugh and they don't.
Who wants that?
And then people who aren't caught up in that, maybe they're in a different sort of sin, but they're at least the feeling in that moment of freedom that probably honestly alcohol sort of helps provide, and you're around other people who they're not judging, and it's the atmosphere is more conducive.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's a hard one. I mean, how do you?
Yeah, so I'm not saying everyone needs to go to the bar instead of church.
No, right.
That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying
there's something wrong there. Something's off there. That's something not right
there, man, for sure. Yeah.
So then, over the last few years, we've had conversations that started kind of with something's happening. God's doing something in my life. Maybe this season's ending, or in a kind of in a sense, you're almost. This is crazy how it worked out, because Jacob and I actually went to your last show at Billy Bob's in January before live music.
So God told me the November before that. Remember, I told you. So like, what you guys don't know on the camera is like Jordan and I talk on another level. So if I have I feel like God's doing something in my life, and you know how there's certain people that you don't lean on, you don't talk to certain people about. I call Jordan.
Yeah.
And go, look, man, I just feel like God's doing something, and I need you to be praying into this. This is a guy that I lean on. So I call him and I say, man, I just feel like my assignment's changing, and God's telling me, here's what he's telling me, to change your wineskins. Remember I told you that? God was telling me.
It wasn't clear at all. Even
clear.
There, it was clear that again, like you said, the winds had changed. But where? Well, I don't know that yet.
I know. And so he was asking me that too. Like, what do you think he's doing? And so I was going, look, all I know is this. God told me to change my wineskins, because one thing about it, when God pours out new wine, he doesn't want to waste it. So change your wineskins. And all I could think of, all I knew was this assignment must be over. So that must be what he's talking about. What do you think, Jordan? So we were bouncing. And long story short, I called Casey and said, I'm giving you my notice. This was in November or December, something like that. And I said, I'm going to play all the way through the end of the year, through January. But that's my last show. Did God rescue me or what?
Dude, it wasn't a month and live music ended. It's kind of like there's that scene in Pirates of the Caribbean where the boat's going down and the pirate steps off the boat onto the dock exactly at the right time as the boat's kind of like going under. It was one of those moments.
And I'm not saying Casey's not still playing.
I'm saying in your life, it was very, if we're just following your story,
that's right.
It was at that time that the provision ran out. You know, it's kind of like the creek dried up, the birds quit bringing bread as God's telling you to go.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I feel like we could almost spend the whole podcast on where we're about to go, the sermon. I got to call it a sermon because we're going to be playing on Sundays. How did the trafficking?
Why do you have to call it a sermon? Call it whatever you want. It's your deal.
This is why we're friends.
As God, churched it up again.
Would you listen?
All right, I'm just kidding.
We're trying to do something here.
All right.
How did the trafficking element enter into the picture?
Okay, well, at my home church, like, we do a lot of work overseas rescuing girls that are sex trafficked. And so so my wife and I are always kind of involved in that through our church or whatever.
Yeah.
But so I'll go into the BHBA some. Okay, so in 2016, we raised a few bucking horses. We were in the bucking horse industry, but I noticed there was no registry. There was no way to prove pedigrees, all this. And I know this sounds like way off of what we were just talking about.
No, the bucking horses are one of the coolest parts of rodeo. When you go,
it's the coolest part.
It's one of the coolest. It's one of the coolest. It's on the list.
It's way up on the list. Right next to team roping. I'm kidding. But anyway, no, I'm kidding. So anyway,
I heard somebody say team roping is like picking your nose. Everybody does it. And nobody likes to watch it.
Yeah. But no, so we started the BHBA. We started a bucking horse registry in 2016, and I bring that up because here's what I did with it. I used that as a platform in the rodeo industry, which is an industry I'm familiar with. We all have a platform.
Yeah.
if that's your job or if that's your school, whatever that is, that's your platform.
Right.
Well, so we have this love for bucking horses. We started this bucking horse registry, and it gained momentum and credibility in the industry. And I said, you know what I want to do? Because I feel like Jamie and I said, you know what? If we could just get cowboys and cowgirls, our people, on board with, if they realize this trafficking deal is going on, I don't think they're the kind of people that stand for this.
Right.
If we could get
Right.
these people on, and then of course I met Jody Webb, which completely ruined my whole philosophy.
Whole
of that.
theory's out the window.
I'm like, what? Golly.
Some of the people that found out about this would do something about it.
I'm
Not
like,
all
is
of
there
them, apparently.
some decent people in the world?
yeah.
But anyway, so I use that as a platform.
Yeah.
And so I have the BHBA Freedom Foundation, which is a 501c3, which we use that platform in the rodeo world to raise funds to rescue girls. Now, we recently have a work going on in Belize. Belize is a hotbed for human trafficking. It's
Why is that? Is it geography? Is it
okay.
rules?
I'll give you
Is
a
it-
list of reasons why.
How,
Number
where
one.
are we at on time? Okay. We're good.
So number one, it's poor. Predators prey on
Poverty,
the vulnerable
yeah.
and poverty.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, they just do. Number one. Number two, it's not against the law.
What?
Nobody gets in trouble for it. Nobody gets in trouble for it. Okay. So, and
So are there people that are actually going to Belize strictly
Yes.
for that?
yes, that's another problem there is sexual tourism. You're a middle-aged white guy, go over there. See if you don't get hit up for a girl. That's why they think you're there a lot of times, right?
No kidding.
It's out of control. And a lot of the Mayan culture, because a lot of that over there, that's Mayan people. Not all of them, but I'm saying a lot of them. When their girls reach puberty, they sell them. It's
I will say
what
this.
they do.
I will say this. It is weird how much people can normalize if their culture prepares them or
That's right.
sort of grooms them
That's
that
right.
this is normal.
It's not
how
normal.
much people, and I'll tell you the one
Yeah.
that I see in the church is how often greed. It's like the world is screaming, this seems kind of greedy. And the church, it is normalized so much
Yeah.
because we live in a capitalistic society, which I'm for the record, I'm for. But
Mm-hmm.
the culture always covers up an element of sin that sneaks into the church. It doesn't matter. I was talking to a guy in his church that they were doing some stuff in Africa, and they said they're struggling with witchcraft in the church. And I'm like, what? How? And it said anything that is prevalent in the culture finds its way into the
Mm-hmm.
church because culture can normalize almost. So what you're saying is, if that is a normal cultural thing,
They don't know. what
there's
to-
not the stigma with it.
I
It
know.
still does the damage. It still creates all the chaos and the death.
Absolutely
But
does. Absolutely it does. Listen, other cultures, like we're talking about culture, the culture of the church and the culture of your house, other cultures are kind of neat to go experience, but a culture of evil is not.
yeah,
Evil can't define your culture, man,
no.
or it's just wrong. Well, there's because the thing about it, like when you go down to Central America or any of those third world countries that are like, a lot of their culture is really cool.
Yeah,
It's really good.
Yeah,
It's kind of kingdom, a lot of it, but not that.
right.
So you think about it. If a family's not going to protect their kid, their daughter, and the government's not,
They've got no one.
listen. If we, as the body of Christ, don't do something, no one's coming, man.
Wow,
Huh?
it's heavy.
When you talk to Jody and you see what she's been through, and you go, there's got to be someone to help.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the body of Christ.
supposed to
man.
be us.
It's us.
Yeah,
And if we don't stand up when we're supposed to, no one else is coming, man. You know?
I can't believe we're going to try and wrap this up in about the next 3.5, 4 minutes. But you've bought property in Belize.
We do. We bought
Brandon
property.
Grindle is eventually going to go with
Yeah,
you
man.
down there.
Right on. Yes, he is. I'm actually going down there in a couple weeks, and Brandon's going to be mad because he's not going with me. But bear with me. Travel is really weird right
Sure,
now.
sure.
So let me get down there and feel it out. I'm going with just a few of us, so we can. And a chance we get stuck down there, I don't know, probably. But anyway, we got land bought. We've got the water, the electricity there, and we've got it fenced now. And so now we're about to start building a safe house.
And it's a place that's designed for life after.
It's girls. We have a pregnancy center there. where girls, which when you hear of a pregnancy center, you think of something here, and it's absolutely nothing like here. All it is a home set up. We have a couple that live there, and they're just the sweetest people
Just
ever.
a safe, deep
Just
soil,
a place,
fertile
yes,
soil.
a place where a pregnant young girl can come and go, I need help. And the girls that are pregnant are never, it's not because they ran off with their boyfriend.
No.
No, it's bad. None of them are in a good situation.
When I say I'm glad you said that. When we talk about, if we're trying to understand what is the Bible trying to express through fertile soil, it's not based on your nation's boundaries. It is a kingdom thing that is universal amongst people that are hurting because of the effects of sin, and a safe place based on kingdom principles where people can go, I'm not sure if I'm kind of down with the Jesus thing, and you're like, just completely fine. It's completely safe even if you're not.
It's
okay.
Yeah.
Well, what if I do this? Completely safe. What if this? And I think when that starts to define what it means to be a follower of Jesus, you're creating a safe place. You are going to see kingdom returns and kingdom harvest begin to come from that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so in the past, though, these girls come, we feed them, give them clothes, we help them through their pregnancy, all this. The problem is, one of the problems that we were running into was we had nowhere for them to stay. So when they come to that pregnancy center, they could help them, give them the love. They pray with them. They do Bible study. They do all kinds of stuff with these girls. But they would just have to release them to live back in the hell that they're living in.
Can you imagine that moment of building a relationship with this
and
person?
I hope I see you next week or something. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but now, once we get these houses built, we'll at least have some place to go, well, this girl's, you don't have to go back where you came.
You're building an embassy. You're building an embassy within a country where in the walls of that place, it looks like the kingdom of heaven. Even though outside the walls of that embassy, it looks like hell. Inside that embassy, this is a city that's supposed to look like eternity.
That's
right here.
Which is the same culture we should build in our homes. A culture that looks more like heaven than it does hell.
Yeah. How can somebody find it if they want to come support or get on board?
BHBAfreedom.com.
BHBAfreedom.com.
It stands for Buck and Horse Breeders Association. So our original website is buckandhorsebreeders.com. You could go to that too, and there's a link on it. Or you can go right to BHBAfreedom.com.
Can't tell you thank you enough.
Man, thanks for having me, man. It's cool. Maybe this is the beginning of a new kind of church.
Awesome.
I hear the Savior's
the king of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the king of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. You are good, you're good too, and you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good too, and you are good, you're good Let the king of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, yes, my son. Let the king of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, yes, my song. And you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh, you are You're never gonna let me down. 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 'Cause you are good, you're good. So you are good, you're good. So you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. So let the king of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the king of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. Yeah, God, we just thank you again for this time of worship. God, you paid it all for us. Let us never forget the sacrifices you make every day for us. God, help us to never stop chasing after you, because we know that you're never going to let us down. You're a good God, you're a good Father, and you're a good friend. And we love you. Amen.
All right. Well, Jacob,
That's it.
that's it. We've reached the end of another Sunday, another amazing service. Another huge thank you to everyone who tuned in online, Powell, Butte, Wickenburg. We love you. Thank you for being here. Don't forget, share the stream. You can still do so now. You can always come back later and share it. Again, just as Steve kind of talked about, reaching people outside of the church walls, and honestly, social media is a big part of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I could do that all day long. I love stories.
Yeah.
Just sitting,
And I said
listening.
it last week too. We bring in different people from our preaching team to have different perspectives and stories, and wow, that's a great perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you want to learn more about Steve and his foundation, I've posted it in the comments on the live stream a few different times, but you can go to the website bhbafreedom.com. You can learn more there. You can give financially, and I said it last week, but again, if you can't give financially, please know that things like word of mouth and social media are so important in today's times. It's a great way to spread the word and potentially reach someone who maybe really needs them and needs what they do, or B, can give financially. So just share. Like wildfire, whatever it's called.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, just like a fire.
Yeah.
Jacob, can you talk about the different ways to pray, to get prayer?
You can email at crcc.
Nope. srccpray@gmail.com.
You can also put it in the comments, and we'll add you to the prayer team. There is a prayer room in the back of the sanctuary here in Powell Butte if you just need prayer right now.
Yeah.
Because we love doing that. So there's a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Do it.
Or send us a private message on social media if you want to keep it private. Lots of different ways. Again, we say it every week, but don't feel like you need to be alone in this season. We have an amazing prayer team and people that would love to just be a support to you and pray for you. Wow, okay. So next up on the list is Wickenburg. Stick around to hear from Mark after your service. I'm going to say it again. Ready? Share the stream. Because like I said, it's just an easy way to get this message out to people who need it. If we reached 1 million different people online or in person, and just one person was changed by what was said today, that makes it all worth it. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for being a part of it. Jacob, what else? Anything else? What do you got?
That's it. So be nice
like, subscribe.
Be nice to people.
No.
Okay.
You got it. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Okay, be kind to people, love people, forgive people, and run from bad guys. We'll see you next week.